With the advancement of the East African community, where does KCB see the opportunities to support the mobilization of domestic and regional capital to support East African business? And I can't hold back by adding something, is that of all the regions where I'm seeing, as I monitor projects for a living, that's what I do, and you get a bit of an eagle's eye view on things, the project flow from East Africa is considerable. There's something that you guys are doing right in East Africa to a large degree now, and we'd like to learn from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, for this opportunity. I see a number of East Africans in the audience here. I see Tanzania is well represented by Issa there. I see the ambassador from Uganda. I see some William and Charity from Kenya. I don't know if there are any East Africans here from Rwanda and Burundi, because that's what forms the EAC as we know it today. Although we try to rope in a couple of other countries in that region, countries such as Ethiopia and South Sudan, etc., fit very much within that. And what we see in the East African region, obviously, is that it's registered very respectable economic growths in the recent past, growths upwards of 5 to 10%, in the various countries, which is slightly higher than what we see elsewhere. And you take the countries together, again, you see populations upwards of 120, 140 million people, and therefore it's a fairly attractive region in terms of investments, as has been said. And in the last 5 to sort of 7 years, there's been a lot of interest in this particular region. But I'll probably come back to that shortly. With regard to the subject for today, which is mobilization of domestic and regional capital, I work for a bank, KCB, which operates in 6 countries within the East African region. I mentioned 5 of them, but also South Sudan is a country that we've been in for the last 6 years. And historically, commercial banks and other banks have been the bedrock of mobilizing funds, mobilizing capital through the channels that they offer for savings and intermediation of funds, both at individual and commercial institutional level. And that continues, because what we see from the banking side, and certainly in East Africa, that the banks continue to provide the channels where people can pull together their monies. Because of the large networks that they run, they are able to reach different parts of the population and of the countries. One of my colleagues here said earlier that banks are also involved in capacity building for a sector such as the SMEs. It is also true that banks such as ourselves are able to leverage funds from different parts of the population. In a sense, matching funds, put in 1 shilling, and the banks would probably put in several multiples of that to ensure that the projects go through. And more recently, using innovative, technology-driven channels just to ensure that the monies are being pulled through. And when we look at the mobilization of capital today, domestically or regionally, certainly the capital markets still form a big avenue, and it's only beginning to develop now over the last decade or so. Reference has been made to sort of equity. There's been a lot of capital raised through the stock exchanges in the region. In our own bank, we're able to mobilize something like $200 million of capital through the stock exchange in Nairobi about 2 years ago. To deploy in the area of SMEs and real estate sector, which need long-term funds. And the other products offered by the capital markets, unit trusts and products that enable people to invest to mobilize funds at a much lower level through the groups that they belong to. One other area, although one may argue that it's not domestic or regional, but the whole area of diaspora flows for me is domestic and regional, because these are sort of East Africans or Africans working and living elsewhere, but now trying to deploy their capital for investment in the region. And so I see that as one very, very strong channel that ought to be encouraged. the debt markets will continue to be a source for mobilizing capital for investment. And as I say, today they are very, very strong banks and financial institutions within the regions which can be used for these purposes. I like the discussion around pension funds. This is an area that in East Africa has not been well exploited, but this is an opening area and opportunity that pension funds, which traditionally have basically gone into real estate in the region, can now be applied much more broadly on the sectors that will drive growth on the continent. And even the question of guarantees that has been discussed here is great. So finally, just looking at some of the traditional instruments from which have been offered usually by governments, such as the bond programs, is an area which, again, banks will be willing and able to support to mobilize capital or funding, especially if these bonds are tailored towards specific investments. If you're looking at investment in infrastructure, if you're looking at investment in agriculture, or any of the other areas that are seen to be key to driving growth opportunities on the continent, or indeed even bonds to support the development of the SME sectors. I mean, this is something that in my view would still work. The challenges obviously remain around sort of the high cost of funds, the liquidity in some instances, but I think this is where some of these innovative approaches to mobilizing capital will begin to help and close down the gap and unleash capital that can then be invested to drive the agenda for Africa forward. And Chairman, just to conclude by saying that the integration agenda for East Africa and indeed the other common market areas on the continent is one that needs to be accelerated. And if there are government officials in this room, and I know that Minister for South Africa is here, as they meet in government forums, it's important that this be accelerated because, as was said earlier, some of the countries on their own will not be able to move as fast as anticipated, but through faster integration, breaking down of the barriers, I see these as things which will help to mobilize capital faster across the region. So thank you very much, Chairman.
Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.